Hi, everyone. Welcome to Andover. On behalf of my colleagues on the faculty and staff and the team Schumann Admission Office, it is indeed my pleasure to welcome you. My name is Jim Ventre, and I am an assistant head of school for admission and financial aid and an Andover graduate from a long time ago. Since you discovered that you were admitted to Andover, we hope that you have felt celebrated and that through our virtual admission programming, you feel connected with an impression of the culture at Andover. As you've heard us say, our culture is grounded in one meaningful and essential goal: creating the very best school every day. Tonight, we are grateful to have our extraordinary head of school, Dr. Raynard Kington, joined by our exceptionally talented associate head of school for equity, inclusion, and wellness, Linda Carter Griffith. Together, we will learn about their educational pathways, career choices, and decision-making along the way to joining the Andover community. In a moment, my friend and colleague, Jill Thompson, will introduce Linda Carter Griffith. And right now, it is my pleasure to introduce Dr. Raynard Kington, Andover's 16th head of school. Prior to Andover, Dr. Kington served for 10 years as president of Grinnell College, and previously in a range of positions at the National Institutes of Health, NIH. Before NIH, Dr. Kington was a director at the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, the CDC. I mean, how lucky is Andover to have Dr. Kington's leadership during this time? Dr. Kington also served as director of the National Health and Nutrition Examination Survey. He has also been a senior scientist at the RAND Corporation and assistant professor of medicine at UCLA, and he was elected to the National Academy of Medicine. Dr. Kington attended the University of Michigan, where he received his Bachelor of Science with distinction and his MD, and completed his residency in internal medicine at the Michael Reese Medical Center in Chicago. He was a Robert Wood Johnson Clinical Scholar at the University of Pennsylvania, where he completed his MBA with distinction and his PhD with a concentration in health policy and economics at the Wharton School, where he was awarded a Fontaine Fellowship. Dr. Kington's research has focused on the social determinants of health and more recently on diversity in the scientific workforce. He currently serves on the boards of the National Opinion Research Center, Partners in Health, and Beth Israel Lahey Health. We hope you will discover in Dr. Kington our intellectual force and a strategic thought partner who cares deeply about the opportunities and challenges facing young people in today's society. Dr. Kington is a dynamic leader who acts with courage in decision-making and who, during these disruptive and turbulent times, has quickly become Andover's symbol of hope. Welcome, Dr. Kington.
Thank you. It's a pleasure.
Dr. Kington, take us back to when you were the age of our newly admitted students. What were you thinking about in making decisions about where you were going to go to high school and then to college, and which educational path to choose? What were you focused on in your consideration of your educational choices at that point in your life?
Well, I grew up in Baltimore, Maryland, in the sort of inner part of the city. My father was a physician. My mother was a school teacher who later did community work. And I went to high school at a magnet math and science and engineering high school, Baltimore Polytechnic Institute, which was an extraordinary school, very hard. By the time I reached high school, I must say I was very fortunate that I never felt that I wasn't valued or that I wasn't capable. I grew up in the African-American community in that town, in that city, that knew that I was in the first generation to come of age after Brown versus Board of Education, after desegregation. So my teachers and my community sort of knew that I and my peers were going to be the first to walk through lots of doors. And they made us feel that we were capable and valued, and we were these sort of almost precious things that were going to go out there and change the world, even as little children. I was fortunate in that my parents somehow were able to convey in me this notion that I could do what I wanted to do, that I could work hard and achieve things. And that the world was not sort of predetermined for me. Now I had some bumps. When I first went to this high school, I'll never get, my first test was in math, algebra. And I've been a straight A student from kindergarten. But when I came to high school, I took my first algebra test and got a 50 on it. It's in 50%. And it was a very tough school. And I remember just being stunned. I thought it was inconceivable that I could like fail. And I went home literally in tears. And my parents sort of said, okay, you have your work cut out for you now. You have to like figure out how to turn this around. And my mother went and bought these practice books for me. And I started working. And amazingly, I saw that I could do well if I worked. It was exactly as my parents had said, that if you try and put effort into it, you get better. And that experience, although it was painful, probably my entire career could be attributed to that failure. and learning how to that I had the ability to turn it around and to devote myself to learning in a way that I both found fun and that I was able to do it. And so I originally wasn't sure what I was going to do in life. I love to tell, when you're in my world and one of your parents was a doctor, you're constantly asked, are you going to become a doctor? Are you going to become a doctor? And I kept saying, no, I'm never going to become a doctor. and of course, I ended up becoming a doctor. But I was the only one of 5 children who became a doctor. And Michigan had this wonderful combined undergraduate medical school program. And I was able to skip some grades and get in. And that was also fascinating. Michigan was a great school. And so I at numerous steps, I was able to sort of have the educational background that made me confident that I could handle whatever was put before me. But probably as important was this idea that I didn't have to do what everyone else did, that I could sort of choose my path. And that's probably the greatest educational gift that I was given. And I would hope that that's something that we try to do here at Andover.
For sure. And we know that our students identify well with choosing their educational path as they're considering Andover. At this point, I'll turn it over to my friend and colleague, Jill Thompson, who will introduce Linda Carter Griffith. Thank you.
Great. Thank you, Jim. Now I get to introduce Linda Carter Griffith. She's our Associate Head of School for Equity, Inclusion, and Wellness. Linda is an instructor in English and has previously served as the Dean of Community and Multicultural Development, which is what we call CAMD on our campus. Prior to her appointment as Dean of CAMD, Linda served as an assistant basketball coach, house counselor, and a cluster dean for 10 years. In fact, Linda was Jim Ventre's cluster dean when he was a house counselor in a large boys' dorm in the Pine Knoll cluster, which some will tell you is the best cluster on campus. Depends on if you live in that cluster. During her time at Andover, Linda helped develop the Life Issues curriculum. She taught in the Summer African Institute through the International Academic Partnership and served as an advisor to CAMD cultural clubs. Among many commitments, Linda is the co-chair of Andover's Anti-Racism Task Force, which is examining Andover's policies, practices, and institutional biases with respect to race. Linda's commitment to underrepresented students of color began when she spent her summers working for MIT's Upward Bound program. Linda holds a BA from Vassar College and a master's in education from Cambridge College. So please help me in welcoming Linda Carter Griffith. Hi, Lynn.
Hi, thank you so much, Jill. And nice to see you all. I'm imagining like this big round of applause, as well as huge smiles and just excitement about Andover. So I'm just gonna say, go Big Blue, because I don't think Jill mentioned I've been here 31 years. All right, so we're just gonna add that because I've grown up at Andover, and I'm also the proud auntie of a niece who graduated and have lived on this campus for 31 years. So I want to share that because it is the mission and value of Andover's aligned so much with who I am which is why I have chosen Andover, and I've chosen Andover year after year and would choose it again in a heartbeat. So let me say this. Jill, it's a big question, and I'm gonna be as snippy and snappy as I can be. I grew up in Boston. Interestingly enough, Raynard, I grew up in the busing era. You grew up in one era, in one moment, in one movement, and I grew up in busing. Growing up in forced integration in Boston and coming from the inner city truly defined who I am. Anybody who knows me, therefore, knows that from day one, I was asked to get involved in the integration efforts in my community. Kids were bused into my community, so I was home. But believe me, the campus was nervous, and they did any and everything they could to integrate us, make peace, and help us find what we had in common, not just our differences, not just our zip code differences, but what did we have in common as young people? That was my middle school. When it came to high school, it was the teachers at that school who said, Linda, take that exam for Latin school. No, I don't want to leave the neighborhood. I don't want to leave my friends. Linda, you need to take the test for Latin. What if I fail? I will drive you, my teacher said, to take the test to go to Latin school. I went. I loved that teacher. Favorite teacher of all time. I take the test, so surprised I've gotten in. My family has moved to California from Boston in the meantime. The test results come, somebody gets my mail weeks later, forwards it to LA, where I'm slated to begin high school. I open that envelope, I fall on my knees, I beg my mother, I cry, and I say, can I go back to Boston? I was 14. My mother has an 8th grade education, my dad an 11th, but I knew that Latin Academy was going to change my life. It was going to change the trajectory, not only for me, but for my family and my family after me. And so my mother, only child, my sister's way older, you'll hear about her later. Only child at this time, puts everything in motion to make this dream for me. So going to Latin, what was involved? Opportunity. I knew I'd be challenged. I was not going to be challenged at that local school. Everybody knew it, but it was my only option. I also, what was on my mind? Friends. Jill, I wanted friends like me. I wanted friends who cared about their future and about growing and about what was out there and wanted to be prepared to do whatever we could. That's why I chose Latin Academy. And I had heard about Latin. So I called just my teachers because I didn't have a lot of friends or family members that attended this school because I never dreamt about it for me. And they said, Linda, I know this alum, I know that alum, I know this person. Latin Academy changed their lives. It transformed them. And that is why I said yes. And my family said yes to Latin Academy and Linda Griffith, and a move across country for my future. And here I am today. Thanks for having me.
Thank you, Linda. I'm sure a lot of what you just shared really resonated with our students and their families. Jim, I'm going to turn it back over to you for another question of Raynard.
Great. Nice job, Linda. You know, there are things I learn about you every time we do one of these events. So thank you for sharing. Raynard, in thinking about your educational journey and connection to various communities, this next question centers on where you derived your support. Was it teachers, family members, mentors? To whom did you turn when you had to make a decision about your educational pathway?
Well, I certainly had a supportive family, and there was no question about it. For me, my family, you know, my maternal grandparents had been children of slaves who were the first in their families to go to college to become school teachers. And it was just understood that education was the way to a better life, to a life, period. So my family was very supportive, and the community was very supportive. That certainly the school teachers, I remember just a school teacher, I remember this in the first grade, I showed up and the teacher in this wonderful school. It was an all African-American community, and it was all African-American school, brand new school that had been designed during the segregation era, but wasn't built until later. And I had to do a math placement exam. So I did the problems, and then I put my head down on the table, because you were supposed to do that after you finish everything. And I did it in like 5 minutes. And the teacher came in and she came to me and said, well, like, you're supposed to do the math. And I said, I did it. It's done. And she looked at it, and she took it out, and she like left the room. And I later heard her talking. She went next door to the teacher next door saying, can you believe this kid like did this in 5 minutes and got it all right? I mean, she was like, and I loved her from that point on. Because I mean, the teachers really sort of, believed in me, and my family did, but the community did writ large. I mean, it was a very close community, so that was helpful. And it's similar to sort of this idea of the dream team at Andover as well. It can't be one person. It can't be even one type of person. It has to be people across different settings. And sometimes, not too long ago, I wrote an editorial about how how valuable and supportive of me when I was a resident at a large academic research center and was one of the few African-American doctors there, how valuable it was to get support from the janitorial staff and the kitchen counter ladies, who always looked out for me and always sort of said, how you're doing, and are you hanging in there? And you can get support from all sorts of different sources.
And stay with me just for a moment, because, I know that, I know a couple of stories about you recently that you've shared that have been very compelling relative to a time when a mentor's advice really hit home. You told me this story one time, and even took you by surprise. And can you explain that story?
So
yeah.
I had finished medical school and finished undergraduate, had finished a residency. And then I was lucky to get into this program supported by a foundation, the Robert Wood Johnson Foundation, that helped physicians sort of get additional training in areas not traditionally areas that physicians were trained in. So I ended up entering a MBA and a PhD program in health economics. And so I was really interested in how social status, particularly economic status and poverty, mapped onto health, how they were connected. And so as I was in the program, I was doing relatively well. Did pretty well, but I had 2 years of funding. It was a new program that the federal government opened up for people like in my area to get federal support as a fellowship. So I had to write an application. So I wrote an application, a draft of it, and sent it around. I went around to several mentors, and one was this renowned professor at University of Pennsylvania, where I was at the time, and I asked her to read it and give me feedback. And she asked me to come back in. She called me and said, you have to come back into the office and we need to talk. So I thought so I came to the office at the end of the day, and, I was tired. She was tired, no doubt. And I was ready, to take down the notes about how all the corrections. And she just looked at the piece of paper and the printout, and then put it down on the table and said, you need to learn how to write. And that was a brutal. I mean, I thought I was pretty, I thought I was okay. And she said, no, you have to learn how to write. You have to learn how to write. You can't you won't absorb it. You have to learn how to write. And I was, by that point, I had an MD and an MBA, and I was like pretty, accomplished, but she told me what I needed to hear, which was that in spite of that, I wasn't a great writer. So what I did is, University of Pennsylvania, like many universities, had these evening credit programs you could take for adult education, basically. And I started taking some of those entry-level courses for writing, and I thought, okay, I need to learn how to write. And it was the best advice ever. And as painful as it was, and I assure you, it was not fun to hear that. It was incredibly important. And years later, probably 20 years later, I was selected to give this endowed lecture at Penn, which is a big deal. You get a plaque and it's endowed. You give a speech and taken out to dinner, and it's a big deal. And so I came and gave this lecture, and I noticed that she was in the audience. And I went up to her and I said, I told her the story. She had no recollection of it whatsoever, because I think she saw herself as just doing her job as a professor. It was like telling you what you needed to hear, and that's what I needed to hear, was I needed to learn how to write. And so sometimes painful advice can be the most important advice. Sometimes it's the most important advice.
Yeah, and I know you happen to operate with a lot of consciousness around your humanity as well as with humility, and that's clearly evident in the story. I love that story. Jill, I'll turn it over to you.
Great. Thanks, Jim. So I have a similar question for you, Linda, which is about guidance and support. Who did you lean on when you needed it for guidance and support? And then I was wondering too, and Raynard mentioned this a little bit, but if you could go into a little bit more detail about what that looks like at Andover, how a student kind of identifies mentors and trusted adults and how they play into the life of students here. We would love to hear a little bit about that from you.
Absolutely, Jill, and promise I'm going to put on my residential dean hat as well when I talk about supports. So first, I mentioned teachers. Teachers were game changers for me because they knew about worlds and spaces and places that actually my family didn't. So I leaned very heavily on them, and they always gave me advice from the heart and from the mind. I listened, but then of course I always went back to my best friend. And of course, parents out there, that's what's happening right now. So let's keep it real. And this becomes about adults in our lives, the ones we will listen to, who will be honest with us, who will reach us in the way that we need to be reached, as well as the young people in our lives when we are young people, who we really lean heavily on. My sister is 13 years older. She's a strong mentor, and not just a mentor, a sponsor. She provided me often with essential messages, some I didn't want to hear, about survival, how to be happy, how to define success for myself. What does Lynn want? What is Lynn thinking about? My nickname, by the way, on campus is Lynn, you all, because it's my sister's nickname. And as I got older, that name meant more to me. So I'm Linda, but everybody calls me Lynn or LCG, which I love, Linda Carter Griffith. She created pathways when she could, and I have done the same for her kids as I do for my own, and as I do for all the kids who come across my path at Andover. All the kids who come across my path, classroom, basketball court, if I'm out cheering folks on, at the track, those who have the courage to walk into the head of school suite and meet with LCG, those who've had the courage to walk into the community and multicultural development or the cluster dean's house and say, hey, I've got. And sometimes if they don't have the courage, I know that they need a little help, asking for help, and I send a little message. Also have been known to show up at dorms and meet people coming out of classrooms when they really need to know we're here for you. Not because you're in trouble, not because we're here for you, even if it doesn't feel that way. One of the things I often say to families is students show up here at 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18. They have a life before Andover, a path, a culture, ways of being, ways of asking for help, messages about asking for help and seeking support. Doesn't change the first day you show up on this campus. It changes when you begin to really hear it and see it and believe it. And so for me, what has kept me at Andover and my main role, I am so sorry this has happened to me before, and I don't know how to shut this phone off because I never use it. It'll go off on its own in 1 second.
Maybe we could send one of the kids over for you, Lynn, to fix that.
See,
for
things
you.
aren't perfect. Things aren't perfect, you all. This is it. Real time. I'm actually looking at this campus alive right out of my window of my study right now as well. But what I want to say is that for me, it's been family, it's been friends, it's been teachers, it's been bosses, it's been colleagues, it's been students sometimes, depending on the need. And at Andover, your teachers, as Raynard said, You know, your teachers will be here, your coaches will be here, your house counselors, your advisors, your point people, your team that is actually defined for you. There's a team defined for you. But I love that the team is so many people, because you never know who you're going to connect with, what kind of connections. You have different connections with different folks. My highlight from the weekend was one of my senior advisees. He's been in college since the fall, wasn't a college call. Something happened in his personal life, and he texted me at 2 on a Sunday and said, LCG, can we please FaceTime today? I moved everything around so I could FaceTime with a senior boy who was in his dormitory at Andover and reached out to his advisor. You know, a highlight of my weekend. These relationships, this is why we're here. You should see our campus as students have arrived this spring, and how many colleagues have said, oh my God, this is why I teach. This is why I do what I do. So I want to share that, and I mean that. 31 years by choice, not because I can't get another job, y'all. Let me be real clear. All right. The other thing I want to say, and Jill, I think it's real important as we think about mentorship for kids in the form of other young people. I run a couple of mentoring programs on campus, and students say, you know, LCG, yes, we know. We don't know what we don't know. And that is why we need mentors and transformative allies and sponsors in our life. Yes, this is LCG coach. We don't know what we don't know. And so Andover has been more and more deliberate and intentional over my time here about creating mentorship programs and putting kids on paths, as Raynard noted, whether it's musicians, because you're a musician or a performer, whether it's athletes who have a certain type of connection, students who are trying to find their niche and figure out where their connection is. So we are deliberate, and we normalize asking for help. We all need a little help from a friend sometimes. You know, we all, not to be cliche, you know, a bridge over troubled water. Grammys were just on. I can quote song after song about needing help and support and it being a good thing. And suddenly when it becomes about us and our academic performance, when we have been a top student, there are different messages that come your way. I want to remind you that there are the other messages and the other people and the other supports, academic skills center, conference hours, advisories. But we have to let kids know that asking for help is normal. And that is a lesson I learned. When you asked what lessons I learned, the most important lesson, Jill, in my entire career at Andover was when a former cluster dean and then dean of students, I went to him when I got the job and I said, please tell me one piece of advice. He said, Linda, this is going to take 5 minutes, okay? You don't know what you don't know about this role yet. And you will have to become okay with that. And you'll have to learn to ask others. I'm here. Start with me. Start with me. And that has been, I'm so glad someone came into my path early in life and gave me that message, because it freed me up. And so your student, if they interact with me, they're going to come back and quote me, and you go ahead and just echo it and say, that LCG, she knows. Thank you.
Thanks, Lynn. That sounds like an invitation too to the students here, that they can call on you as a trusted adult in their lives. Jim, I'll turn it back over to you.
Great, because I know the students are waiting to hear from you, Dr. Kington, and then from you, LCG, jumping forward to your decision to come to Andover. What was it about Andover that made you feel this was where you wanted to be? And how did you go about making this important decision, Dr. Kington?
So I think it's fair to say I haven't had a traditional career path. So I've worked in lots of different settings. I've worked at a think tank, the RAND Corporation. I've worked at a university, big university. I worked at an agency like CDC, the National Institutes of Health, a small liberal arts college. So I'd been in lots of settings. And there are 3 things that I think connect all of them. One, they're all institutions that are about knowledge. and using knowledge to improve the human condition in some way. So that's one. The other thing, all of those organizations were responsive to a changing world. They weren't locked in history and locked in their own history. They were prepared to respond in their mission to a changing world. And then the third thing is that they were all committed to excellence. Like every single one of those institutions wanted to be the best that they could possibly be. And for me, that's been a consistent theme. And I was at a meeting at the Aspen Institute that I went to every year, and was getting on a shuttle to the airport, and a graduate of Andover who also was a headhunter who worked with the company that was trying to help find the next head. And he saw me and he said, you know, are you interested maybe in Andover? And I said, yeah, sure, give me a call. And I got on the shuttle and got on the plane, and here I am. It led, you know, that one exchange opened my mind, and I saw that when I took the time to learn more, because I knew about Andover, but I had never been. I'd been on campus once because all the founders of Grinnell College had graduated from Andover Theological Seminary. So I had come because of that tie between Grinnell and Andover once, and walked through campus. But other than that, I just knew that it was an excellent school. But then when I started to look and actually do my homework, I saw that the school's values and missions connected with me. The commitment to need blind. Grinnell was also a need blind institution, but need blind and missions. Also commitment to diversity and inclusion. A willingness to adapt over 240 plus years to a world that has changed dramatically, and yet the institution has managed to sort of adjust to every change, and whether it was the War of Independence or dealing with the complexities of coeducation in the 70s. I mean, it's sort of been able to reach a point where it says, no, we have to change because the world has changed, and then both to change and be responsive, but to remain true to its core principles of excellence, to opportunity. Even in its original constitution, there was a commitment to youth with requisite qualifications from every quarter, that there was a sense that it had to be open. And many of our peer schools actually were not open at the very beginning. I think even at the very beginning, that it really impressed me that there was this notion of opening experiences to a wide array of different kids, even back in the 1700s. So that all impressed me. And then one thing led to another, and here I am. And my son's finishing his first year here.
And thank you. And thank you also, by the way, Dr. Kington, for your profound strength and leadership during this time. And we're grateful to you. I'll turn it over to you now, Jill.
Great, thank you. So similar question for you, Linda, but a little bit different in that we know that you spent much of your career here at Andover. You mentioned that in the beginning. And so we're a little bit curious about perhaps what led you here, but more importantly, what has made you feel compelled to stay? We know you've probably considered some other pathways, and what has ultimately led you to decide to remain with us? You talked about this a little bit earlier. I'd love to hear a little bit more about that.
Thank you again, Jill, and I'm delighted to speak about what brought me to Andover briefly and what keeps me here, because that was a long time ago, but very similar to Raynard. And I was working later at Boston Latin School. You know, the story continues around how life just happens. And a colleague was working in a program here called the MS² program, Math and Science for Minority Students, incredible summer enrichment program, 3 summers at Andover. I was shocked they were looking for an English teacher, frankly. I do teach English on the side, and I'm an adjunct in the theater department, by the way. I teach a course called the Identity course, open to all lowers, uppers, and seniors. And so just a little plug, Jill, I've got to use that too. Love my class. We had 2 sections in the fall.
You've got some people who might sign up, so that's
yes,
great.
Absolutely. Sam mentioned they needed an English teacher, interestingly enough. And I said, for a math and science program? He said, yeah, Lynn, scientists and doctors and engineers need to know how to write too. I says, okay, let me check it out. I came to the campus, it blew me away. The commitment blew me away. And I was here in the summer, very happy teaching in Boston at my alma mater's brother school. And frankly, when an opportunity came up here, I had to think a lot about it. I was very committed to what I was doing in Boston. And it was the opportunity to be a part of educating the whole child, the coaching, the dormitory, the advising clubs, living in a dormitory with young people. You're able to have an impact and relationships with kids in ways, frankly, I never had at Latin school or any school I attended. I attended or worked at, frankly. That was a day school, and particularly when the whole population came from the neighborhood, from the region. It was an incredible experience for me. I grabbed on right away to the international students, what I was learning about them, what they enjoyed, what they were learning about me from where I grew up and my experiences. Kids from all over the nation. We used to, on Sunday nights when I was a house counselor, we would talk every Sunday. A couple of kids would talk about their home community, what they missed the most, what they were bringing with them to Andover. And of course, LCG was encouraging them, please bring it, please bring it. This is what makes you unique to our institution. Keep bringing it. Grab what you're going to grab from Andover, but keep bringing you as your authentic self. I had 40 girls in Paul Revere, where I lived for several years before I became a residential dean. I was then able to bring that to over 200 students and adults in the community and day students who were a part of my cluster. That kept me at Andover, the sense of community, the intentionality about community and whole child. What keeps me at Andover is this. As long as I've been at Andover, Andover has been about walking the walk, not talking the talk. Whatever it is, we're going to take on. And we say we're going to take it on, and we do it because we have been about excellence. And families, I want to tell you that excellence is about everything we do, not just about the classroom experience. It's about extracurricular opportunities. It's about a residential opportunity to be in an intentionally diverse community in these days and times, where cultural competency skills are critical and are hard to learn and pick up and really be a part of who you are if you're not exposed to others. That's what kept me. Boston was always calling. I grew up in Boston, families there. It's a great city. I had tremendous opportunities in the city. Andover's not Boston. Andover is the world. And I have always been about living in the world since I was 14 years old and begged my mother to move back cross country to Boston so I could go to a high school that would change my life and the person I am today. Head, heart, hand. Somebody posted me on Instagram today. Thank you. Shout out to the Andover magazine. I'm at Andover because Andover is about the head. It is about the intellect. It is about scholarship. It is about growth mindset in every way, including EQ, not just IQ, but emotional intelligence as well. Cultural competency is a part of that. It's also about the heart. I love this place. People here love me, have loved me. Jill, for the first time, my students who lived with me in Paul Revere, who were in the plays I directed my first year at Andover, in my English classes, their kids are coming to Andover. That's what this is about to me. Yeah, I'm that old. I told them they can't call me granny. Okay, it's not gonna happen. But that is what Andover is about. It's full circle. Andover changed their lives. Now their kids are coming. And the last thing, it's head, it's heart. Hearts are stories. Hearts are how we feel. It's that sense of belonging. And it's about the hand, which is the action, which changes the trajectory. It changes what we do, how we live, the decisions we make, what we see when we go into a room. That's Andover. I haven't been able to find it anywhere else. not at this level, not in this particular way. Okay, let me be very clear. It's in other places. I haven't found them. And so that's why I stay at Andover. And that's why I'm saying, thanks.
Thank you, Lynn. I'm somebody who already loves my job 100% of the time, but whenever I hear you and Raynard speak, it makes me love my job even more. So thank you for joining us tonight. Jim, I'll turn it back over to you.
Thank you, Jill. And I hope all of you will join me in thanking Dr. Raynard Kington and Linda Carter Griffith for their warmth and generosity of spirit during our program. As they depart from the screen, please join me in welcoming the members of the Team Schumann Admission Office, who will introduce themselves and tell you a little bit about who they are and what they do at Andover. And while Team Schumann is getting settled and turning on their cameras, and please remember that our enrollment response date is Saturday, April 10th at 12 p.m. Andover time. We do not offer extensions to that deadline because we know that if you have trouble making your decision about Andover by April 10th, you will also have trouble making your decision about Andover on April 11th and April 12th. So please let us know by April 10th. All members of Team Schumann are available through email to answer any questions you may have as you get settled with your decision to enroll at Andover. And so maybe now we'll just proceed in alphabetical order, and I'll actually go down the list of participants here and ask Viv to go ahead and introduce herself.
Hi, everybody. I'm Vivian Malik. I'm the Director of Admission Operations. This is my 22nd year at Andover, and I run Bancroft House, which is a 29-person dorm in West Quad North, which is also an amazing cluster. I know Jim and Linda are big fans of Pine Knoll, but I love West Quad North. And I coach girls JV2 lacrosse. I have 6 advisees. And in the admission office, I work most closely with the day student applications. And congratulations to all of the newly admitted students. We're so excited that a lot of you have already said yes to Andover, and we're just so excited that hopefully a few more will before Saturday at noon as well.
And I'll ask Heidi to go, and then Jamie and Joanne next. Heidi.
Excellent. Thank you. Welcome, everybody. Congratulations. So excited you're here. My name's Heidi Jamison. I'm the Director of Financial Aid. And like LCG, I've been here a while, not quite as long, but about 12 years. Great place. I worked with about half of your applications working on the financial aid piece. So if you have any questions, you can find me at financialaid@andover.edu. Looking forward to seeing you on campus in the fall.
Thank you. Then we'll go with Jamie and Joanne, and then KG.
Hi, everybody. My name is Jamie Finney. I work actually with all the classes and all the grade levels and all of my colleagues here. I also am a complement in Chase and Isham House this year. We're super creative and we called it Chisham, which is really fun. And I actually get to work with Miss Paltry and Mrs. Thompson in the dorm as adult team and adult mentors for our girls in the dorm. I also coach JV field hockey, varsity ice hockey, and I teach in the Empathy, Balance, and Inclusion program.
Thank you, Jamie and Joanne, and then KG, and then Leela.
Hi, everybody. My name's Joanne Love, and I'm the operations manager here at Andover. I am kind of like the Wizard of Oz behind the scenes, behind that curtain, and trying to make things run smoothly for you with all those applications of yours that we received. Congratulations on your admittance. I just want to say that if you are admitted, you are a kind, nice person. That's what we think about a lot here at Andover. So congratulations, and we look forward to meeting you this fall.
Thank you. We'll go with KG, and then Leela, and then Pete. KG.
All right, cool. Yep, my name is Kevin Graber. Most folks call me KG. I am Senior Associate Director in the Office of Admission. During the admissions reading season, I read and evaluate applications for 9th grade boys. So I get to read a lot of really cool applications. I live here on campus with my wife and 3 children. I'm part of the house counseling team in Feast House, which is a dorm for 9th and 10th grade boys. I'm also an academic advisor. I teach a class called Foundations as part of our empathy, balance, and inclusion curriculum. I am the class advisor to the upper class. Upper year is our slang term for the 11th grade year here. And I coach a sport in the spring, and I got off the playing fields not that long ago, which is why I'm dressed as I am right now, rather than say shirt and tie or something like that. But we are so psyched that you've been offered admission to Andover. Go Big Blue.
Thanks, KG. And we'll turn to Leela, and then Pete, then Sarah, and TI will finish us off.
Awesome. Well, thank you. Welcome, everyone. We're so excited to have you. We are so hopeful that you will say yes to us. I'm sure many of you have already done that. My name is Leela Poultry. I'm the Assistant Director of Admission. I work primarily with our 11th graders, so our uppers. I have such great hopes and plans for you all this fall. In addition to working in the admission office, I have hats in the house counseling realm with Mrs. Finney and Mrs. Thompson, and I'm also a dance teacher. So if you've never taken dance class before, you've done it your entire life, we look forward to seeing you on the Marley. Congratulations.
Thanks, Leela. Now Pete, and then Sarah, and then TI.
Hey everyone, thanks for joining tonight. I'm Pete Dignard, and I work in the admission office. During the reading season, I work most closely with the 10th grade applicants. I also work closely with our alumni interviewers. So if you interviewed one of our alumni, chances are you might have gotten an email or 2 or 3 or maybe even 4 from me, which I apologize if I filled your inbox. And I do a bunch of fun stuff on campus, including coaching JV hockey and baseball. I live in an upperclassmen boys dorm. I graduated from Andover as well in the class of 2007. But the thing that I'm most excited about this year, a little title I added, is I'm the commissioner of the first annual Platform Faculty Tennis League, which is a really big deal on campus. So you got, just so you all know. And if you ever, that of all the things we have here, we have a platform tennis court, which is like kind of unreal. And one thing KG forgot to mention is that he is the inaugural champion of the Platform Tennis League, which I think is a pretty impressive thing. KG, you should put that in your resume, I think.
They can never take that away from me, Mr. Dignard.
Oh gosh, here we go.
Pete,
Okay.
Pete, you cannot, I'm sorry, but you cannot forget to mention the garden.
I agree, Pete. Let's get the gardening. Yes, go ahead.
It's like 1A, 1B right now. It depends on the time of the year what I'm more excited about. But I do run the community garden on campus. And a lot of my colleagues, when they read applications that have kids with like gardening interests, they send them to me because I love gardening so much. And the number of kids who like gardening this year has gone through the roof, which is kind of cool to see.
Of course they have. That's right. Okay, thanks, Pete. And Sarah, and then TI.
Hi, everyone. My name's Sarah Carroll. I am an Associate Director of Admission here, so happy to be part of Team Schumann, but even more excited to be here tonight. Speaking to all of you, I am, like LCG did, I'm imagining you smiling and just being really excited about this opportunity. I am a class officer for 9th grade girl applicants, so I read a lot of your applications, and you are also impressive. So it was really fun getting to know you through that process. I also help run a upper class girls dorm on campus. I'm an advisor to 8 lowers, 10th graders. Most of them are new this year, which is what a year to start at a school. And they're doing great. They're all on campus right now, which is so exciting. And I also help coach JV lacrosse, which is this is my first time I've been able to do that. Seasons were canceled last year. So I'm really happy to be here. If you haven't said yes yet and you still have questions, let me know, especially if you applied for the 9th grade. But I really hope to see you all here in the fall.
Thank you, Sarah. And TI.
Hello, everybody. Before I introduce myself, I know we can't see you, but I'm using my imagination. Raise your hand if you've ever heard the saying, save the best for last. Okay, I just wanted to put that out there. I'm Terrell Ivory. I go by TI. I am an associate director of admission. I also a former house counselor. I am currently coaching the boys varsity basketball team, and like KG and some others on here, I teach an empathy, balance, and inclusion course. And I think I might have said this, but this is the most important thing that I love to say at this. I am an alum. I graduated from the school 21 years ago now. I did a post-grad year and loved it so much. Like Mr. Dignard and like Mr. Ventre, I came back to work here and I am loving every bit of it. And I'm hoping sort of one day in 4 years, 3 years, 2 years, or 1 year to add you guys to the alumni group that we have that's really, really, really special. So I'm so happy that we're able to talk to you guys, you all tonight, and congratulations on being admitted to the school.
Thank you, T.I. And there were a few other of our colleagues who are off in other activities at this time, in particular, Ms. Jessica Acosta Chavez and Trey Brown, whom are also part of the admission officer lineup that helped read and make decisions on your applications as part of the admission committee. And a number of our staff team also couldn't make it tonight, but they're all very enthusiastic about you all enrolling and saying yes to Andover. So we hope that tonight's program gave you some insight into how Dr. Kington and Linda Carter Griffith made decisions about their educational choices, and their stories help you appreciate the importance of the decision you will make to join us at Andover. The context of your environment, your identity, and the experiences you have had in your life are at the center of what we know you will bring to our community. We have assessed your character, your talent, and your academic achievement, as well as your potential. And we have focused particular attention on the nuance in your stories to purposefully build our community and not just admit students to our school. In crafting your Andover class of excellence, we embrace students in their identity, and we see the person behind the story presented in each and every one of you. Come to Andover, make new friends, and explore how these many connections generate the bonds of belonging and identity within the culture of our truly global community. Under Dr. Kington's leadership, we are positioned well to have access to Andover's deep resources and the necessary support for the students and faculty to follow their dreams. Remember, we are the Philippians. We are the Big Blue. Congratulations on your admission to the 244th entering class of Phillips Academy. Thank you for joining us. We hope to see you again soon. Take care, everyone.